on Zoom, and we're going to say hello and welcome to While the Chicken Soup is Cooking. We're your hosts. I'm Rabbi Nick.
And I'm Shira.
And it is wonderful to see you all on Zoom tonight. And if you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube, come on, come and join the party. We've got a great crowd as always. And trying to figure out what we should talk about, actually. We've got a couple of things that we were toying with. So maybe you can decide which one sticks. So a couple of weeks ago, we had the KLBD Roadshow. And I had said at the beginning of that session that I know that nobody is old enough to remember a time when you had to, pluck your own chickens and do so much for kosher food. And of course, I recognise that there were some people who would remember such times. And so I'd said, well, we can discuss it at one of our Thursday night chats. And then for the last 2 weeks, we haven't been able to do them. Or as in, the Feldmans have done them, but we haven't been able to do them. So that's one possible conversation topic to jump in on. And the second was, because this week is Parshat Beshalach, and it's Shabbat Shira. So happy birthday for a couple of days ago to Shira, because she was born around this time. So we were thinking of talking about what meaningful and inspiring song has meant the most to you throughout your life. What song had really, there was a moment when something you listened to, I don't know where I'm going with this. Shira's giving me Shira's giving me this look of it did make more sense when we were talking about it earlier, but not now. So we'll open the floor, really.
Can I get hold of the pills you're taking?
I'm still going from my cocktail night last night with the young parents. So. But yeah, so over to you guys.
Music is very important, and everybody's got a tune which they just remember forever. And when you hear it, it evokes so much, which is true. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? It's not my favourite tune, but perhaps some of the others will know this. There was a tune called Marching Strings, which is, which used to be played on children's favourites on
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, and we bought it. My father bought it because we had a record shop next door to our shop, and brought it home on an old 78. And we used to, yes. Oh, they're so young.
Old 78.
78 records.
Yeah.
And he brought it home, and I dropped it, and it broke. But it didn't matter. It got another one. But it wasn't that the music was wonderful. I'm not saying that tune was, but it just evokes in me my childhood. Yes, you understand that, don't you? Yes.
It's amazing because with Sage, over the last few months, we've done some sessions called Desert Island Discs, where we ask people to nominate the music that evokes a particular memory for them. And in each session, we've managed to get 10 people on. And we've got this guy called Brian, who we tell the music in advance, and he finds a disc for us. And the individual person comes on at that session and tells everybody why that particular piece of music is memorable. In fact, Josie, you've been on. That is Josie there, isn't it? Yes, Josie's been on a couple of times. Very interesting. It's amazing how not only does it often bring back memories for that individual, but other people that from their childhood or whatever. It's been such an interesting session, these Desert Island Discs.
Have you nominated one yet?
Sorry?
Have you nominated one yet?
Yes, I nominated one called Stargazer by Neil Diamond. When I attended a concert at Woburn Abbey, and it brought back wonderful memories of how we got lost coming home because it was pitch black. Nobody could find their cars at the end of the concert, and it's long before we had mobile phones. I think Helen and I had only been married, 6-7 years, and we had a babysitter, and we got home so late, couldn't phone her to tell her. She was so angry with us. and you charge us another 5 shillings for another hour and a half.
Ooh.
Shillings, remember them?
Shira doesn't even know what shillings are.
I had a friend who liked musicals, so I decided for her birthday I would take her to this particular musical, which was Les Miserables. And sitting there, unfortunately, her husband had died the year before, and the tune and the song that always stuck in my mind from that was Empty Chairs and Empty Tables. And I felt awful sitting next to her, listening to the words of this song that she must be feeling so lost. And I couldn't do a thing. I didn't know it was coming up. I didn't know the music at the time. And I felt awful. And I still like Les Miserables. Henry doesn't like it. He's never seen it.
Oh.
Yeah. But, you know, you feel you're doing the right thing, and it didn't work out. So it always associates that.
Does anyone have a song that constantly comes up in their head? That's like sometimes, pardon me?
That you replay in your mind.
Yeah, I don't know. Just there's always like something that I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But I don't know. There's always like the odd song here and there that just it gets into your head for like a couple of days and then it disappears and it comes back again. It's always like it's not necessarily a favourite song. It's just one that you think, what on earth am I thinking of that? or do you do what my grandpa does? I've barely spoken to him in the last year, unfortunately. But once upon a time, like you'd be having a casual conversation and a word would crop up and all of a sudden you just burst into a random song. You might talk about a butterfly and you'll just start going, butterfly, butterfly. Does that happen to anyone?
It's true. I think there are certain artists who can do that to you. There's Frank Sinatra. You know, some words will just send you off into a Frank Sinatra song, or even the Beach Boys will do that, and you know, all sorts of people. It's
interesting you mentioned them because I literally had the Beach Boys running around in my head last night. When I was having a shower, the song Surfing USA came into my head. I've got no idea why.
Which one?
Surfing USA. And then because I got started on that, for some reason, Good Vibrations came in next. So I just listened to a whole Beach Boys album in my brain.
Okay, let's all go in.
Yeah.
Good.
After you.
It's not one I'm Rabbi thinking, not you.
It's not my fault. I didn't write the song.
It's a shame you'd have made a killing. Did Henry just ask who the Beach Boys are?
I can't do anything with him. He's never been on my wavelength. Classical as far as he's concerned.
What's your favourite piece then, Henry?
What's
Well, it's not a question of a favourite piece. It's one that sticks in my mind. As a student, I used to go to the... Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I used to go to the winter proms at the end of the fall. And standing in the prom, right at the front where the orchestra was, and they were playing Grieg's Piano Concerto. And it got to the last movement, and the girl in front of me just collapsed on the floor. Well, a group of us carried her out, and I came back, and in my mind was the Grieg Piano Concerto. Well, you wouldn't believe it, but the following year, when I went to the proms, to the Grieg Piano Concerto performance, there was a girl standing in front of me who also collapsed. So I wondered if it was something to do with me in the end.
I was going to say, Sissy, did you have a women?
So the Grieg Piano Concerto does stick in my mind, and it's a lovely piece of music. I'm sorry, but there are no Beach Boys in the piano concerto.
Do you play any instruments?
Do you play the instrument?
No, unfortunately, no. Although, where we lived in Dalston, in the same house, there was a group, 3 brothers. One played the violin, one played the piano, and the other one played any instrument that was available. And every evening, 5 o'clock came, and we had a little classical concert. And to this day, I regret that no one said to me, "Come on, Henry, learn to play an instrument." And I never did. I tried once in Toynbee Hall when we had temporary classes. And I tried to learn the violin, and the guy said to me, "Forget it."
Can you carry a tune?
Pardon?
Can you carry a tune?
I think so. But I won't spoil your evening by trying to.
You're not gonna join with Stanley Klinger the singer then, and start calling members of the community and.
Oh dear.
Do we have any other musicians?
No.
Goodness
My
me!
family was full of them. My family was full of
Oh, yeah,
musicians.
that's true.
On my mother's side, I had an uncle, Uncle Billy. He was a professional violinist, and he used to play in the cinemas to the silent films.
Ooh.
And that's where he met his wife. She was the pianist, and he played music in the silent movies. Eventually, he got his own orchestra, and he used to play at the Lions Corner House. Yes, yeah, Marble Arch. That's where he was, and the Strat he played. Eventually, he went to South Africa and did very well in Cape Town with his own club, playing wonderful music. I mean, wonderful violinist. And then he came back to the UK, and he was a session musician at Abbey Road, played on a lot of the Beatles stuff. You know, he didn't care who they were. He was just happy playing along. You know, he didn't know who the Beatles were. So he did that. Then his son was a cellist, and he was a jazz cellist, and he also was in many orchestras as well. And then his son is also not a cello, the other one. No, Manny played double bass, so the cello was Andrew. Andrew is a professional musician now in Los Angeles, and he was in a quartet, very famous quartet, string quartet, but now he's a professor and he plays in California, and he comes over here to teach. So it's in the family. It's amazing what's in the family.
Did you mentioned something there that the Keck family would have no idea about? Lions Corner House and Marble Arch.
How dare you, Stuart? How
You
dare
wouldn't know about the famous teas where Ivy Benson played and Magic
Nick's mum
Place.
was a nippy. Nick's mum was a nippy.
Could be. I don't know. But here's an interesting thing then. I'm wondering if my theory here is going to be true or not. If you guys were not musically inclined and didn't learn instruments, did any of your children learn instruments?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah.
Well, I started to play the piano, but only because Lawrence's mum bought a piano for us, and it was Rachel that was learning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to take lessons, and then we moved here. And then when Rachel moved, she took the piano with her, so my lessons halted. And her kids, they started sort of playing, but it didn't go too far. Sophie plays a bit now. Zach did.
Because the reason why I ask is because my dad was pushed as a child to learn several instruments, and he learned piano, guitar, bass guitar, cello, a whole bunch of things, and he decided that he wasn't going to force his children. So both my brother and I had piano lessons as children, but apparently all I did was just like complain a couple of times, and they said, "Okay, don't worry, you don't have
It's
to."
probably more than a couple of times.
But I have so much regret now, like Henry, for not having, stuck it out and learnt an instrument, because I feel like I would be an excellent piano player, but because my father had these instruments shoved on him, he didn't want to impose that on us. So I'm just wondering if it kind of like goes goes through waves. You want your children to learn instruments, but if they felt forced into it, then the next generation won't be, and then that next generation will be. I wonder if it kind of peaks and troughs like that or not.
It's interesting. Back in 1967, I saw an advertisement in the local paper which said, a teacher willing to give piano lessons, only adults need apply. So I thought I would try this, and I went along, and I did in fact spend a year learning to try to play the piano. But I did ask her, why adults only? She said it's quite simple. It's not the children who want to learn to play an instrument, it's the parents who want them to. Mm-hmm. It's no good. You've got to wait until the child wants to learn to play an instrument, which is just bearing out what you've just said.
Mm. Well,
I must admit, I stopped in 1968, so that my mother died, unfortunately, and I didn't play after that. Mm-hmm. But the lady on my left used to play the piano.
Ooh. I have an uncle who was a professional pianist. He used to accompany Victor Mod and do lots of arrangements in the States and that. So there's something in our family as well. And both my sisters, well, my one sister particularly has a beautiful voice, my mother did, and the other sister decided to learn the guitar. And she got to a stage where the teacher said to her, "You're so good, I can't teach you anymore. Would you please take my beginner's class?" Which she did. And in the end, she ran a guitar school in Welling Garden City for quite a few years, all from nothing, you know. So there is music on our side. That's
amazing. That's really nice. I'm very unfortunate. My family my sisters are quite musically capable. I am completely not.
She says that.
I'm really not.
She says that.
Like, my sister can listen to a piece of music and she doesn't actually know how to read notes or anything, but she'll pick it up and play straight away. She's just amazing like that. And I wish I had that capability, which I do.
Oh, we should get a piano then.
I was interested on Tuesday afternoon at the Sage talk about Irving Berlin, how when he started to play, he played on the black note.
Yes.
Rather than the white. And my father was the same. It was his brother who was a professional. My father always used to tinker on the piano and enjoy, but use the black notes, and that was actually on Tuesday.
That's so interesting.
Amazing.
Yes, quite a character in Berlin from nothing.
Oh, wow. I, for some reason, never realised he was married to Eleanor Fitzgerald.
No, he wasn't. I don't think he was married to Eleanor Fitzgerald.
No, that didn't come across. I don't remember that.
Oh, I thought I heard that.
No,
what's the connection between them?
She sang a lot of his songs. He wrote for her.
Oh, is that what it was? I didn't realise at the time. I thought it was strange, but you know,
nice Jewish boy like that.
Well, but he lived to 103. Canadian horror.
Amazing. That story about the black keys and the white keys, it reminds me of, and you can tell me if this is apocryphal or not, but I believe there's a story about, is it Itzhak Stern, the violinist? No, Itzhak Perlman. Stern or Perlman? Which one's the famous? Pardon me?
They're both violinists.
Oh, come on. Okay, which one is the one that suffered from polio? And that's Perlman. Okay, so I believe the story goes that there was a time when he was performing in a classical orchestral piece, and one of his strings snapped.
Yes.
Yeah. So is this a true story? And without even batting an eyelid, he managed to carry on playing the entire piece on the strings that he had left, and nobody could even tell. Which is just incredible, isn't it?
Good, but 3 strings.
Pardon me?
Instead of 4 strings, but for you, 3 strings.
So I remember hearing that story and just thinking that's absolutely amazing that when you reach such a phenomenal talent, level of talent that you're able to do that. Unless you're going to tell me, no, actually it's quite easy. In which case, fine. I didn't know. But it sounds like an impressive story when you hear it.
100%.
But no one's agreeing with me, so.
No, it is. I mean, it's quite amazing. But you talk about Irving Berlin. He only wrote in one key. He couldn't. Oh. He didn't know how to change key.
Wow.
Yeah. It's quite amazing. And yet he sold thousands of songs.
Oh, amazing.
Well, he made millions, but he wrote thousands of songs. Yeah. Yes.
My father always told me that his father, which was my grandfather, he played the violin, and he used to play from weddings in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And very often they didn't have anything to pay him, so they used to give him a chicken. That was what he had to take home for playing the violin.
Again, it's written on the roof again, isn't it?
Yeah, they say that.
Well, my grandfather, so my father tells me, but I never heard him do this, played the oboe, but he played klezmer. He was a klezmer. He came to this country in 1905, but my father told me, I never heard him play. But I've always had a love of klezmer music. So let me tell you, a collection and a half of klezmer. And maybe that's come down through the generations.
Have you ever been to any of those festivals in Poland and other European places? There's quite a cultural following now, I believe, of klezmer music. It's I don't know if you've ever come across Marcel Manson from Stanmore, but he's huge into this stuff, and he used to take groups to klezmer festivals in Europe. And
yes, I mean we've been to concerts.
Yeah.
We saw the New York Conservatory Klezmer Orchestra in the Royal Festival Hall. What a concert! I mean, we were dancing in the aisles. They played Romania, and they started a conga line that went off the stage, round the stage, up the stairs, all the way round the back. Everybody was on their feet dancing. It was remarkable. What a group. What a group. I love klezmer. It is so Jewish. It is so Jewish.
How many?
And I was going to say, then of course, a lot of the great songs from the 1930s and 40s from America, from Broadway, from the great writers of the shows, all had the klezmer in them. If you listen to their music, it's klezmer music.
Wow. How many people do you need for a klezmer orchestra? Well, how many instruments does it require?
Basically, a clarinet, a trumpet, and a drum, and away you go.
So are they always small groups, or have you seen like dozens? And
we've seen dozens, but we've also seen quartets. I mean, it's the noise, it's the sound they make. It's just amazing.
At our grandson's wedding, it was only a klezmer orchestra as such, and I can go 3 or 4. One a girl singer and 3, I think. They were fantastic. The whole atmosphere, everybody was up and dancing. Wonderful. Daniels.
Yeah, we went to a bar mitzvah last year before the lockdown. It was Yoni Nemko.
Oh yes.
And they had a klezmer group, and the music was it was pushing people the whole night. It really did. It's
that is the fascinating thing about music, is that it can literally pierce through your soul and your heart and everything, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I had at the beginning of the first lockdown, I was sitting in the playroom with the kids, and I was just finishing like davening in the morning because my dad wasn't feeling very well, and I was just like, okay, I need to do something because I can't do anything. And at one point I was just so stressed, and the kids started singing a song with all of their friends on Zoom. So you can imagine it's like 20 kids singing all together, really sweet, and they're all singing how you have to have belief and hope that everything will be okay. And as soon as they started, I just couldn't help myself. I just broke down and started crying, and I was like, it's kind of in a weird sense, this like hug that I just needed to like believe that everything was going to be okay. And thank God, a year later, he's fine now. But it's just, yeah, it really, really affects you in it.
Yes,
it's just
and it's amazing what music can do for people who are unwell. People with dementia who can't remember things can actually remember songs and music.
Songs,
and it's amazing how it brings them alive. But you know, and then they revert back to their unfortunate, sad way of living. But music, and I know from the Sage Singers, the choir that we put together, bringing 20 people together, how much fun they had together, how good it made them feel. So music has an important role to play in everyday life.
Yeah, 100%, for sure.
Beautiful.
Just what you were saying, Stuart, I saw a video recently of a prima ballerina that's like she's probably in her 90s and she's actually got dementia, and they let her listen to Black Swan or like to the music for it, and she was like moving her arms like she remembered. It was incredible. It was so amazing to watch.
Yeah. And you mentioned Stanley Klinger before. I mean, Stanley's in his 90s, and it's his singing, I'm sure, that not only does he make other people happy, but it keeps him going as well. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
there was a series on TV, I've forgotten the name of the actress, because her mother had dementia and she realised from her singing helped. And they got all, I don't know whether you saw it, they got all these people together, and some of them were just sitting in a home, literally as they do when you go into home, you know, just like that. And they played some music and the whole effect changed, everything changed. And she got a choir together of all these, but it was all different ranges of dementia. There was young people as well. And it was amazing. They learnt the song and they performed the song, and it was fantastic to watch. Absolutely.
Well, just before lockdown, our granddaughter Sophie went to the home at the top of the road here. And she sang with her school friend.
Some very old songs they learned.
Yes, like We'll Meet Again and various other things from the 1940s. And these older people in the home were captivated. They don't half asleep to begin with, but they woke up and they were singing and they were swaying along. And the staff said to us afterwards, she said, there were people there who they'd never seen be animated at all, ever. And they saw them smiling and waving. Amazing, amazing.
Incredible.
So it just shows you how powerful music is. Just amazing.
I've seen a couple.
If you think about it, if you take our service in Shul, for example, on a Shabbos morning, we finish up singing Alim Zemiros, right?
Yeah.
People join in. But if you said to someone, just repeat Alim Zemiros, they wouldn't be able to do it. Ask them to sing it, because there's a tune, they can sing it and they get the words right. It applies to quite a lot of our Tehillim as well. If you said to someone, just say Psalm 20 or something, whatever it is, they couldn't. But if there was a tune that we're used to singing, I mean, I always can hear Cousin Robin singing Mehu Zemelechako. But if you asked me to say it, I couldn't say it, but I can sing it. Well, sort of.
Don't give up the day job.
Go on, I should be so lucky.
Oh, that's
See, when we have an unfamiliar tune, because the congregation doesn't join in, because it's one they recognise, the Ruach is wonderful, because they all join in.
Yeah, Shira would always tell me that the year that she came with me to my yeshiva for Rosh Hashanah, there's a point in the Musaf service, which is just before Kedusha. It's just, you know, we have Unatana Tokef, and we have Barosh Hashanah Yikate. So once we get out of that in my yeshiva, and I've tried to introduce it in Bushi as well, but there's a really upbeat tune, and when you've got 500 boys and men and they're dancing up and down, and that, you know, it's the atmosphere is so incredible that Shira always reminds me of that, especially when it comes to Rosh Hashanah time. It's not Rosh Hashanah time yet. we've got Purim and Pesach to get out of the way first. So.
But when you sing Hallel, Nick, when you do Hallel in the shore, it's magical.
Oh.
Magical.
And Shira never gets to hear it because she's always at home with the kids.
You should try coming to shore.
I know, I really should. I'll leave them home next time.
We're almost getting at the age where we could leave them at home with Miri.
Maybe.
Oh, but there we go.
You mentioned Yom Kippur, and I always at the end of Yom Kippur, because you've been in shul all day and you've heard the songs, you were talking about things that go around in your head, and usually the whole night I find that I've got the tunes and the prayers going around in my head.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
It's amazing.
It's a powerful tool for inspiring us, for lifting us, and there's all kinds of mystical ideas behind why that's so. I just can't remember any of them. I recall one thing that I remember from Rabbi Tatz, who in talking about how you've got the natural world and then you have the supernatural world, which is represented by the number 7 for the natural world and supernatural for the number 8, which is why Hanukkah is always talked about as being the time of miracles and the supernatural, because it's got 8 days in it and it goes above and beyond nature. So I remember him saying something along those lines about music, because you have 7 notes in the scale, but it always connects to the 8th, because it never ends. So you have 7 notes and it goes straight back to A again. It's always connected to the 8th. So there's something there on a mystical level as well as to why music does so much for us. But I guess if you want to hear more about that, guys, come and join us on Zoom, because we're going to stop the recording over here and we're going to wish everybody on Facebook and on YouTube a wonderful, wonderful night. A Shabbat Shalom for when it comes. And we'll see you next time on While the Chicken Soup is Cooking.